J.C. Price is one of the ignored witnesses to the JFK assassination. And this is the affidavit he filled out on the afternoon of the assassination. This day at about 12:35 p.m., I was on the roof of the Terminal Annex building on the northeast corner when the presidential motorcade came down Main to Houston, north on Houston and then west on Elm. The cars had proceeded west on Elm and was just a short distance from the triple underpass when I saw Governor Connolly slump over. I did not see the president as his car had gotten out of my view under the underpass. There was a volley of shots, I think 5, and then much later, maybe as much as 5 minutes later, another one. I saw one man run towards the passenger cars on the railroad siding after the volley of shots. This man had a white dress shirt, no tie, and khaki-colored trousers. His hair appeared to be long and dark, and his agility running could be about 25 years of age. He had something in his hand. I couldn't be sure, but it might have been a headpiece. Now, J.C. Price was never questioned by the authorities. Well, there is an FBI interview I'll get to, but he was never questioned so as to clarify exactly what he means here when he says a shot maybe came 5 minutes later. When Mark Lane questioned him too, and that was never clarified there either. So some people will just laugh at this witness as being cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because he's saying shots were fired 5 minutes later, and he's saying that Connolly was not in the president's car. That's obviously a misunderstanding. I think he probably thought the president was in the first car, which was Chief Curry's car. But he should have been questioned to clarify these things. And anyway, it's important. He sees a man running away from where he thought the shots came from. And here's the FBI's itsy-bitsy, teeny-weeny report on their J.C. Price interview. Jesse C. Price, 2602 Astor, telephone, if you need it, advised he is an employee of General Services Administration and was on duty at the Post Office Annex on Houston and Commerce Streets, Dallas. He was on the roof watching the parade, heard the shot, and saw President Kennedy slump over. He assumed the shot had come from the overpass and looked in that direction, but saw nothing pertinent. And that's all the FBI got out of it. And in 1966, Mark Lane took a crack at interviewing J.C. Price and did a far better job than the FBI.
Is this where you were sitting on November 22nd, Mr. Price?
Yes, sir.
Right here?
Right here on this spot.
And where did you think you heard the shots come from?
From behind the overpass over there. Triple overpass. That's where I thought the shots were coming from.
And where did you see the man run?
Over behind that wooden fence, past the cars, and over behind the Texas Depository Building.
And then in his book, Mark Lane wrote, on March 27th, 1966, I interviewed Price on the roof of the Terminal Annex building. During our filmed and tape-recorded conversation, he furnished a full description of the man he had seen on November 22nd. I paid particular attention to him. He had on khaki trousers, a white shirt, and I'm pretty sure that his hair was sandy and long. A man appearing about 145 pounds in weight and not too tall, I'd say 5'6" or 5'7". He was bareheaded, and he was running very fast, which gave me the suspicion that he was doing the shooting. But I could be mistaken. The man was carrying something in his right hand, Price added, which could have been a gun. And where did you see the man run? Over behind that wooden fence, past the cars, and over behind the Texas Depository Building. Now, some people will accuse Mark Lane of lying by saying that Price added it could have been a gun he was carrying. I'm not sure we can assume that Lane is lying, even though that's not in the film. But I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Lane, in a sense, put those words into Price's mouth. I think that's what Mark Lane wanted Price to say. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Lane was leading the witness there. But this is a pretty good, consistent story from Price. The hair color seems to change a little bit. The weight changes by 5 pounds. The height stays the same. We get the added detail. The guy's bareheaded. And here the shirt is white. Not a dress white shirt, just a white. And he's carrying something anyway. Now in this photo I've marked out in the blue oval up there on the right where Price was. He was on the roof of that building. And down on the lower left area I've got the red dots and the line. I'm not trying to place the man precisely where he ran from. I'm just putting the general area behind the picket fence. And Price said he ran to behind the Texas School Book Depository building, and that's where I have the circle on the left there. And if he ran behind the building from Price's perspective, he may have gone into the building. Price wouldn't have known that. And here I have circled possible entry points for such a running person to have made. There are doors that are marked out on this diagram. There's a window right at the stairway. I presume it could have been opened, and he could have jumped in the window there. The point I'm getting at here is that this running man could have run into the Texas School Book Depository building, and it might even have been Lee Harvey Oswald. I think he would have had enough time easily to beat Baker and Truly to the second floor, and he might have got there before or after Sandra Stiles and Vicki Adams came down the stairs. I'm not saying that's definitely the case. I'm saying it's possible that J.C. Price saw Lee Harvey Oswald running away from behind the picket fence and to the Texas School Book Depository, and that he might have entered the building after J.C. Price lost view of him. And I think Running Man is explainable in terms of the handbag incident. This is Mrs. Chisholm's handbag before and after. It looks to me as if before JFK is shot, she has a shorter handbag than she has after JFK is shot. In fact, it looks like a much larger handbag. And I have videos on this, but I will briefly review what I think happened here. I think the handbag that Mrs. Chisholm ends up with after the shooting is large enough to hold this Remington XP-100 weapon, which was first produced in 1963. The dimensions are there. I can't read it, but I think it's like 14 or 18 inches were the options for that year. I think that would fit into this handbag, and I think, therefore, it probably is in that handbag when she runs off, but she probably did not have anything in her handbag when she started. It was a different handbag, and I think the longer handbag was handed to the Chisholms after the shooting. This Remington XP-100 also would be short enough to fit in Oswald's curtain rod bag and actually be cupped in his hand and be under the armpit of his shoulder, as Frazier said it was carried. If Oswald had been carrying an XP-100 in his curtain rod bag, then the story would make sense, whereas with the Mannlicher Carcano, of course, it wouldn't, because even disassembled, that rifle is too long to be carried in the manner in which Frazier said it was carried. So I think maybe Oswald brought a Remington XP-100 or some similarly sized weapon with him on the morning of the 22nd. And after the president was shot, I think Mr. Chisholm took his wife's handbag, the one she was carrying first, the smaller one, and I think in the ghost image you can actually see him here bending down and reaching for the handbag. And then, carrying the handbag, Mr. Chisholm ran up to the west end of the pergola. And when he got there, I think he handed off the handbag he was carrying to Alan Tippett. He's not there in this photo, but Alan Tippett ends up holding something, and I think it's the first handbag. And I think Shadow Man, the man circled in blue here, who's walking away at this point, I think Shadow Man handed Mr. Chisholm the new, longer handbag with the weapon in it. Beatrice Hester is seen here holding what apparently is an empty shopping bag, holding it open, standing in front of the bench up there, just as the president is shot. I surmise that Alan Tippit was supposed to take the first handbag that he got from Mr. Chisholm and drop it into that shopping bag, because Alan Tippit goes up there afterwards carrying whatever it is he's carrying. But the Hesters have run away by that time, so Alan Tippit can't drop it in the shopping bag, and he has to hold on to it for a while. And I think he's still holding that the handbag when he's running to the overpass, and I think because he's dealing with it, that's why he falls behind his other friend, and I think he carries it all the way up to the overpass. We can't see here at the overpass whether or not he has that with him, because there are other people standing in front of him. But after this, Alan Tippit apparently disappears from the photography, so we can't see what happened to the handbag after that. So what I'm getting at here is that I think Shadow Man was carrying that longer handbag, and he had put the gun into it that had been used from behind the picket fence. So going back to this photo, I think that Shadow Man, who I'm representing in purple here, was either with Running Man behind the picket fence when Running Man presumably fired the weapon, or perhaps Shadow Man was over where the lighter blue question mark is. In fact, I think that's more likely, because I think J.D. Tippit was actually shot here in Dealey Plaza about where that question mark is, because people saw a puddle of blood there. And I think probably Shadow Man shot J.D. Tippit there, and that Shadow Man then met Running Man at some point, perhaps where I have the light blue circle that's not filled in there, and that Shadow Man had the long handbag, and that Running Man placed the weapon into the long handbag, and then Shadow Man followed the blue line to 2, where 2 is here, and that's where Shadow Man gave the long handbag to Mr. Chisholm, and then at 3, Shadow Man is at about the position we see him walking away in the Bothan photo. And what J.C. Price saw in the hands of the Running Man, I think, is probably the curtain rod package, or maybe it's some other bag. Maybe Oswald didn't bring the thing in to work with him. But I think probably whoever had this gun behind the fence carried it out to the fence in some kind of packaging that wasn't the long handbag, and that's what he's carrying when J.C. Price sees him running back behind the Texas School Book Depository building. So I think J.C. Price was an excellent witness. I don't think he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I think if he had been questioned properly by genuine investigators who were trying to find out what happened so that the murderers could be prosecuted, that those murderers would have been prosecuted and they would have been duly hanged, as they deserve to be. If any of them are still around, they still deserve it. But it's not going to happen, of course, because, well, let's not get off topic. I like J.C. Price. I think he was an excellent witness.